Hello everyone. In this lecture, we'll be discussing the short story A Day's Wait, written by Ernest Hemingway. We'll start with the summary of this story. The story is in first person narrative, and as the story progresses, we understand that it is narrated by an elderly man, a middle aged man, and there are two characters, major characters in this story, the narrator and his son, who is named as Shats. So, when the story opens, we get an understanding that the narrator, who is the father of the child, is anxious because Shad seems to have a fever and he seems to be very weak and upset because of it. The doctor comes and tries to examine Shats, and he finds that there are chances it can be influenza. So the story is also based on the Spanish influenza or the influenza pandemic that happened between 1918 and 1919, and it had affected many people. It had caused widespread death. The story is also written around that time. And so when the doctor comes and informs Shats and the narrator that the boy is might be suffering from influenza, but we have to be very careful, constantly take the temperature and all. And also the doctor says that the fever is at 102. So Shats listens to all the things that the doctor says, and he suddenly seems to be upset about something. So when the doctor leaves, the father gives him medicines, takes constant care of him, and also decides to read his favorite book to him. But Shad seems to be uninterested. He doesn't pay any attention. He is upset, but he is not openly communicating what he feels to his father. And this is quite strange because the child is always happy and it's just a light flu, so it is not something to worry about. So, as the father is reading the book of pirates to Shats, he doesn't want the father to continue and he wants to be left alone. So, the father says that I can be with you. You can just maybe take a nap, and I'll be there with you. I'll sit with you. But he doesn't want his father to be burdened by this situation, and he wants to be alone. So leaving Shats alone, the narrator decides to go for hunting, and it's extremely cold. Everywhere there is frozen ice, and he takes his dog along with him. The narrator takes his dog along with him, and they are able to find some quail. They are able to successfully kill two, and so it was a happy hunting. The narrator returns with these quails back to the house, and when he returns, he finds that Shats is very adamant and he is not ready to meet or talk to any of the nurses, and he doesn't want to see anyone. So this is a very strange behavior because Shats is not that kind of a child. So the father decides to go to Shats and inquire what the situation is. He sees that Shats is wide awake, has not slept, and takes the temperature. It is again 102, nothing alarming about it. And he says that, see, nothing much has changed. It is the same temperature, so you don't have to worry about anything. But despite this claim made by the father, the son seems even more unhappy about certain things that are happening with him. And when the father tries to communicate with Shats, he understands that there is some sort of confusion that the child has, and he is confused between Fahrenheit and Celsius, and he thinks that he is having a temperature of 102 degrees Fahrenheit, which is quite deadly. But the father tries to tell him that this is a difference in the readings, like we have kilometers and miles in the east and the west. Similarly, we have Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature. So according to Celsius temperature, you are completely normal. There is nothing alarming about it. There is nothing deadly about it. So when the child gets to know this part, he is more relaxed, and surprisingly the next day he has come back to his normal self. He is laughing, he is crying at small things. So this is how the story comes to an end. A day's wait. Clearly the child had to wait an entire day, thinking that he is going to die. He is going to die of this fever, and he was in atmosphere, and also he showed courage as well. So this was the discomfort that the boy had from the beginning of the story, and it took him one whole day to realize that it was his misunderstanding that had caused the fear. Moving on to the major themes of the story, the first major theme is isolation and emotional distance. So you can see that in the relationship between the father and the child wants to be left alone, and it also gives us an understanding of their relationship. He doesn't seem to be very close with his father because there is some sort of hesitation to reveal what his fear is. So there is some sort of hesitation in the child. He is trying to maintain a distance, remain isolated from his father. The second theme is fear and mortality. So this is one major theme you can find in Hemingway's writings. Here, how death is treated as something trivial when he talks about the number of birds that he was able to kill. The narrator was able to kill. It simply shows that how death is treated. Hemingway doesn't give much importance to the idea of death, and that is why here also it is treated as something very trivial. The next theme is miscommunication and misunderstanding. There is clearly a misunderstanding with Schatz. He confuses between Fahrenheit and Celsius. Then there is endurism and stoicism. So heroism as well. So here you can find that the child is enduring everything, whatever he is, even though he is in utmost fear, he is afraid that he is going to die, still he maintains that courage. He wants to be alone, he is not crying, he maintains that heroic trait in him. So you can find that there is a lot of endurance in that particular child. One major concept that we have to understand from the perspective of the story is heroic fatalism. Heroic fatalism, when we try to break that word apart, we get the word heroism and fatalism. So it simply means that showing courage when there is some critical situation, when there is a fatal situation. So it means that when a person decides to show or exhibit heroic qualities when there are certain uncontrollable situations. So here Schatz is a perfect example of exhibiting that heroic fatalism. He is not afraid of death. He is not ready to weep about it. He is anxious, but he doesn't let the people around him feel the same anxiety. So there is some sort of distance maintained by Schatz in that regard. So this is a critical understanding of the whole chapter. Thank you.